또 강조받아 쌓일 your tears 넘치듯 차오르고 있잖아. So why you playing it cool? 눈앞에 아른거린 blue 모두 흘러난 우 펼쳐지는 그 안의 color Now you can feel it too. 잠시 눈을 감고 깨워 너의 spectrum I will stay with you, with you. 긴 꿈의 끝에 기다리는 rainbow, yeah. Every time you wake up 내 맘을 더 close up 빛내는 감정 다 빠짐없이 scrap now. 외면할 필요 없어 do it over. 대체 터진 무지개 따라서 가자. Oh focus 수많은 에피소드 사이에 스며 수없는 이모션 번져 오듯 조금씩 밝아와 모여진 이 감정들의 light. 구름 뒤로 숨긴 마음은 하나 둘씩 꺼내 set free. 잠시 있었던 모든 feelings 조금씩 떠오르고 있잖아. So why you
Introducing Korean broadcast content that you won't be able to stop watching. For weary modern souls, Dr. Romantic, the quirky genius doctor of Puldam Hospital, prescribes heartwarming tales of humanity. A couple together for 7 years sees their rose-tinted glasses shatter. Can they keep their relationship alive? Discover the raw stories of youth, work, and love. Beyond what social media can show, experience the vibrant Korea through its hidden gems. Mama, the ultimate K-pop festival for global fans. Find your star in a feast of trendy music and electrifying performances. Now, the whole world enjoys it together.
The U.S. and Iran are offering no clear path to resolving the war, as both claim they will be the ones to end the conflict. Meanwhile, Iran continues to threaten to block all oil shipments through the Strait of Hormuz, claiming responsibility for attacks on at least 15 vessels attempting to pass through the world's crucial oil choke point. South Korea says it will release around 22 million barrels of oil from its strategic reserves as part of a coordinated action by the International Energy Agency members to launch the largest ever oil release to calm surging prices. The Trump administration has launched a new trade investigation into South Korea and 15 other economies with the goal of replacing reciprocal tariffs, which were recently ruled illegal by the Supreme Court. The probes, which will be conducted under Section 301 of the Trade Act, could eventually lead to new import taxes. Hello and thanks for joining us on Arirang News. It's been nearly 2 weeks since the conflict in the Middle East ignited. Both the United States and Iran insist they will be the ones to end the war, deepening a standoff with no clear path to a resolution. Our An Sung-jin starts us off.
U.S. President Donald Trump said the ongoing situation in Iran could end, quote, whenever I want. In a phone interview with Axios on Wednesday, he insisted the military campaign was going very well and that the U.S. forces were ahead of schedule.
We don't want to leave early, do we? We got to finish the job, right? Over the past 11 days, our military has virtually destroyed Iran.
The White House also emphasized that the operation would only end when Trump determines that the military objectives have been fully achieved. Israel, fighting alongside the U.S., stated that it will not impose a time limit on its campaign until all objectives are achieved and victory is secured. However, Iranian officials rejected the idea that Washington can unilaterally decide when the conflict ends.
I have repeatedly warned Trump, you can start a war, but we will decide how it ends.
Iran has reportedly rejected 2 ceasefire messages delivered through Trump's envoy. According to The Guardian, the internal consensus among Iran's leadership largely favors continuing the fight for now, with officials believing the regime can endure the conflict. Meanwhile, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has claimed responsibility for attacks on vessels attempting to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. At least 15 vessels in the area have been attacked since the beginning of hostilities, with Iran continuing to threaten to block all oil shipments through the waterway. The U.S. has warned of possible airstrikes on civilian ports as retaliatory measures. With the Strait of Hormuz being one of the world's most critical energy corridors, fears are mounting that global energy prices could surge if the strait remains closed. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
South Korea will release more than 22 million barrels of oil from its strategic reserves as part of the International Energy Agency's largest ever coordinated stock draw. The move comes as global crude oil prices remain volatile, despite plans by the 32 member nations to inject 400 million barrels into the market amid ongoing Middle East tensions. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
South Korea plans to release 22.46 million barrels of oil from its strategic reserves as part of a coordinated action by member countries of the International Energy Agency aimed at stabilizing global energy markets. Seoul's industry ministry announced the plan on Wednesday, shortly after the 32 member nations of the Paris-based agency unanimously agreed to carry out the largest collective oil stock release in the organization's history. In total, about 400 million barrels of oil will be made available to the market in an effort to ease supply disruptions and curb rising crude prices linked to the ongoing war involving the United States, Israel, and Iran.
As a result of the discussions among IEA members, I can now announce that IEA countries have unanimously decided to launch the largest ever release of emergency oil stocks in our agency's history. IEA countries will be making 400 million barrels of oil available.
South Korea's contribution represents about 5.6% of the total volume to be released. The size of each country's release was calculated based on its share of overall oil consumption among IEA members. The U.S. Energy Department also issued a press release saying the administration would release 172 million barrels of oil from its reserves. Officials say the timing and detailed schedule of the coordinated release will be determined in the coming period. The decision comes as global oil markets continue to show volatility despite expectations of increased supply. On Wednesday, Brent crude rose 4.8% to $91.98 per barrel on the ICE Futures Exchange in London. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude also climbed 4.6% to $87.25 per barrel, moving above levels seen before the IEA announcement. Analysts say the record release underscores the urgency among major economies to prevent further spikes in oil prices and limit the broader economic impact of the conflict. 이승재, Arirang News.
The United States has launched Section 301 trade investigations into South Korea and 15 other economies in a move to revive reciprocal tariffs. Now, this would replace the temporary 10% global tariffs imposed at the moment. U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer announced the probes on Wednesday, U.S. local time, saying that foreign overproduction displaces American domestic manufacturing and halts new investments. The move comes as the Trump administration is looking for ways to maintain its trade tariff policy following the Supreme Court's invalidation of its previous tariffs. The USTR specifically highlighted South Korea's $56 billion bilateral trade surplus with the U.S. and its global surplus in automobiles, machinery, and steel. Public hearings on the investigations are scheduled to begin on May 5th. Meanwhile, South Korea's National Assembly is set to pass a special bill later today to manage strategic investments in the United States. The legislation would establish a new body to carry out a memorandum of understanding, pledging $350 billion in investment in the United States. The body would operate a dedicated investment fund financed through government contributions, entrusted assets, and investment bonds. Lawmakers are also expected to request a parliamentary probe into alleged politically motivated prosecutions under the former administration of former President Yoon Suk-yeol and vote on dozens of additional livelihood and reform bills. And President Lee Jae-myung has hosted his Ghanaian counterpart for talks, strengthening cooperation on trade, critical minerals, and maritime security top the agenda. Our Blue House correspondent Yoon Jung-min reports.
Bolstering the partnership was the focal point as President Lee Jae-myung hosted his Ghanaian counterpart, John Mahama, noting the two countries' shared experiences of achieving democracy and the increasing trade volume.
서아프리카 3개국과 국경을 맞대고 있는 해양국 가나는 대한민국의 아프리카 시장 진출을 잇는 든든한 교두보이기도 합니다. 그리고 최근에는 매우 큰 규모의 벼 재배 단지를 함께 조성해서 내년부터 한국산 벼 종자를 생산할 예정으로 있습니다.
Ghana, like other African countries, has a potential for critical minerals. And so currently we're exploiting bauxite, manganese, and gold. And we've discovered vast reserves of lithium. Korea has the technology, and we believe that we can explore these minerals together.
Maritime security was also high on the agenda.
가나는 해적 위협이 상존하는 기니만에서 우리 대한민국 국민들의 안전을 지키는데 그동안 적극적으로 협조해 준 참으로 고마운 나라이기도 합니다.
The issue of piracy is of major concern to Korea, just as it is to Ghana. And so I'm happy that one of the memorandums we're going to sign is to do with maritime safety.
MOUs were signed on Wednesday for cooperation not only on maritime security, but also on technology and science, as well as joint tackling of climate change. There was a friendly atmosphere as the leaders touched upon a link between the two countries, represented by Ghana Chocolate, a chocolate bar made from Ghanaian cocoa that was launched in Korea more than 50 years ago. Lee has presented Mahama with the chocolate, who's on a working visit to South Korea. The cinnamon was extended to cultural and people-to-people exchanges.
가나 현지에서도 영화, 식품, 화장품 같은 우리 문화가 큰 사랑을 받고 있다고 알고 있습니다.
When I was coming, somebody asked me to bring them back kimchi. And our young people, including my children, listen to K-pop music.
Seoul's top office added that the leaders also addressed regional and global issues, including the Middle East, and said it hoped to expand the nation's diplomatic horizons. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
In sports, Team Korea added 2 more silver medals at this year's Winter Paralympics in Milan Cortina, surpassing the country's previous best performance at a single Winter Paralympics set at the 2018 Pyeongchang Games. Kim Yoon-ji claimed silver in the women's 10-kilometer cross-country interval start on Wednesday, giving her 1 gold and 2 silver medals at this year's Games. Kim has now also set a new national record for the most medals won by a South Korean athlete at a single Winter Paralympics. In wheelchair curling mixed doubles, Baek Hye-jin and Lee Yong-seok secured silver after a 9-7 loss to China in a final that went into extra ends. South Korea has won 5 medals, 1 gold, 3 silver, and 1 bronze. Additional tickets for BTS' upcoming comeback concert in central Seoul will be released later today, with around 7,000 standing spots being added for the event. According to the group's agency Big Hit Music, the extra tickets for BTS' The Comeback Live Arirang will be released for free at 8 p.m. through No Ticket. The additional standing areas will extend from Gwanghwamun Station to City Hall Station, where fans can watch the concert on large LED screens. The total audience capacity will increase to about 22,000 people, and those who already have tickets will not be allowed to apply. High demand is expected after more than 100,000 users flooded the ticket site during the first round of reservations last month. Over the weekend, the world observed International Women's Day, celebrating the progress made while reflecting on key challenges that still lie ahead in terms of advancing gender equality. The UN Women's Center in Seoul held a ceremony to commemorate the day on Wednesday to invite experts to delve into the discourse. Our Kim Bo-kyung was there.
Though Korean society has seen significant progress in gender equality, there is still a gap that cannot be narrowed enough. Not just in lower representation in economic activities and leadership, but also in terms of a digital society and crime.
As AI becomes part of everyday life, we must address problems like deepfakes used for digital sex crimes and gender-based violence in relationships. Gender equality is a value for everyone, and it is key to making our society more inclusive, resilient, and sustainable.
Commemorating this year's International Women's Day, the UN Women Knowledge and Partnership Center in Seoul held a ceremony, inviting pundits who have witnessed ongoing gender inequalities and are trying to overcome them. Among the speakers was a math professor who emphasized that AI learns from already unfair data, causing itself to learn discrimination against women.
If different perspectives are missing when technology is designed, it can create bias. When this technology is used in hiring, healthcare, or the justice system, it can make discrimination part of the system. Women's participation in science and technology is not just about numbers. It is about fairness.
Gender equality is not just a women's matter. In that gender equality lets men go beyond the traditional idea of being manly, come out of the so-called man box. The progress in equality allows men to be freed.
I believe that when men accept and take part in gender equality, it can also help solve men's problems and bring them greater freedom. For men who want to move away from the patriarchy but feel confused within a strong patriarchal system, gender equality can offer a real solution and a new model of masculinity.
Gender bias and discrimination still exist across many areas of society, often unconsciously. By encouraging open discussion on these issues, South Korea aims to move toward a more gender-equal society, not only for women, but for everyone. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, to tackle fires that are difficult to extinguish in areas too dangerous for firefighters to enter, South Korea is now planning to deploy robots. Our Cha Yun-kyung tells us more.
An unexpected electric vehicle fire quickly turned an apartment complex into a scene of utter chaos, and it took almost 8 hours and 20 minutes to completely extinguish the blaze. While the thermal runaway phenomenon in batteries was partly to blame, the difficulty for fire trucks entering the underground parking lot also played a major role. To address this issue, low-profile fire trucks that can easily navigate underground parking lots are being deployed to the field. Modified military vehicles equipped with thermal imaging cameras can suppress fires using water cannons while driving. A four-legged robot walks boldly through a subway turnstile into a hall filled with thick and gray smoke. Upon discovering a person lying still and motionless, it begins its rescue mission. The system can reconstruct 3D visuals of environments too extreme for human entry, providing critical situational awareness. Furthermore, its onboard sensors detect 8 varieties of gas, enabling the real-time monitoring of potential hazards.
The deployed robots identify gases and determine whether they are harmful while searching for survivors, helping to decide whether firefighters should enter the site.
Robots have also been developed for other challenging environments, such as underground spaces and logistics warehouses, where high temperatures and black smoke make entry nearly impossible once a fire breaks out. The unmanned firefighting robot, donated by Hyundai Motor Group, was specially engineered to withstand extreme heat up to 800 degrees Celsius. It is also capable of search and rescue missions, using infrared sensors to track down missing persons who may be trapped or isolated. During a fire at a household goods manufacturing plant in Eumseong-gun County, Chungcheongbuk-do Province last month, it was deployed to the scene for the first time and played a vital role in tackling the fierce flames. Cha Yun-kyung, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you everything you need to know from around the globe. Reports suggest that a devastating missile strike on an Iranian girls' school was due to U.S. forces using outdated intelligence. Video evidence points to a U.S. Tomahawk missile hitting the school in southern Minab during the opening wave of attacks against Iran. The strike killed 150 students. Sources told Reuters that military planners used outdated targeting packages and didn't update coordinates. The school sat adjacent to a Revolutionary Guard compound. President Trump stated he will await the final results of the inquiry, while defense officials maintain the U.S. does not deliberately target civilian structures. G7 leaders on Wednesday rejected easing of sanctions against Russia, despite the disruption to the global energy markets caused by the war in the Middle East. French President Emmanuel Macron confirmed the decision following a high-level video meeting to discuss the economic impact of the U.S.-Iran conflict. EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen backed Macron's stance, saying it is, quote, not the moment to relax sanctions on Russia. She also emphasized that navigation through the strategic Strait of Hormuz, through which around 20% of the world's oil is moved, remains the immediate priority. In Chile, conservative leader José Antonio Kast has taken the oath of office as the country's president, vowing to prioritize national security and economic reform. Kast assumed power in Valparaiso on Wednesday. Chile's new president immediately pledged to utilize the full force of the law to clamp down on illegal migration and violent crime. Regional leaders from Argentina, Ecuador, and Paraguay attended the ceremony. Iran's sports minister announced on Wednesday that the Iranian national team will not participate in the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Sports Minister Ahmad Doniamali cited the U.S. assassination of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei as the primary reason for the boycott and labeled the U.S. a, quote, corrupt regime. This comes despite FIFA President Gianni Infantino saying that U.S. President Donald Trump would welcome the team. All of Iran's scheduled group stage matches were set to take place in American cities, including Los Angeles and Seattle. Chu Ji-han, Arirang News.
Western regions will have fine early spring weather under mostly sunny skies, but across the eastern parts of Korea, rain and gusty winds are expected. There could be 5 to 20 millimeters of rainfall along with thunderstorms, while Gyeongsangdo provinces will see spotty rain, which won't be enough to lift the dry weather alerts. Meanwhile, mountainous regions in Gangwon-do province will be snowy with more than 20 centimeters of snowfall expected through tomorrow, with a heavy snow advisory being issued. And instead of wet weather, most of the western regions will be trapped in that dusty air through the morning, but air quality should gradually improve later in the afternoon. And this afternoon, Seoul will be getting up to 13 degrees Celsius. Daegu, Gyeongju will be topping out at 12 degrees. Now, rain and snow along the east coast will continue through Friday, while the rest of the country will have typical early spring weather with big temperature swings.
That's all we have for today's noon edition of Arirang News. Thank you for watching. We'll be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Stay tuned.
To set the facts straight. Get Korea right.
한국을 대표하는 먹거리